Hello and welcome to Business English Podcast.
Today,
We're diving into episode 49,
okay.
How to Master Cross-Department Communication, 11 Essential Speaking Skills.
Yeah.
We often talk about the importance of clear communication,
Yeah.
but this episode really zooms in on a specific challenge talking to other departments.
Right.
And it's packed with actionable advice.
Absolutely. It's something so many people struggle with.
Right.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
You need something from another team, but it feels like you're speaking different languages. Like Sarah from marketing needing a quick tech fix from IT, but ending up in a 3-day email chain just to explain the problem.
Ugh, it's so frustrating. And this episode highlights how critical cross-department communication is for your success. It's not just about doing your own job well.
All right.
It's about being able to collaborate effectively with others.
It's-
So we'll unpack the evolution of workplace communication, decode departmental cultures, explore the power of active listening, and build a practical communication toolkit. We'll even touch on virtual communication and global speaking patterns.
It's a deep dive into what truly makes communication successful.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that even with all our fancy tech tools like Slack and Teams and Zoom,
I know.
a Fortune 500 company featured in this episode was still struggling with departmental communication. They were missing those crucial human speaking skills.
Wow. Okay, so let's start with that evolution of workplace communication.
Okay.
It's wild how much things have changed.
Yeah.
Even in the last few years.
Think about it. 20 years ago, it was all about interoffice mail and memos.
Oh, yeah.
Then came email, and now we have instant messaging, video calls, and tons of collaborative platforms. You'd think communication would be a breeze.
You would think. But this episode makes a great point. The more digital our workplaces become, the more important those human speaking skills become.
Yeah.
It's like we need to level up to match the technology.
Precisely. When you're on a video call with people from 5 different departments, each with their own jargon and priorities,
Right.
the ability to speak clearly and concisely
Yeah,
and persuasively
Yeah.
is a superpower.
totally. Speaking of different jargon, this episode talks about something called the departmental dialect switch,
Yes.
which sounds super interesting. Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. It's the ability to adjust your speaking style
Okay.
based on which department you're communicating with. Think of it like speaking different languages when you travel.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use the same phrases or tone in a bustling market in Morocco as you would in a formal business meeting in Tokyo.
Right. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So in the workplace, you'd use precise, data-driven language when talking to IT, but focus on user experience and storytelling with marketing.
Exactly. The episode actually shares a story about Mike, a brilliant software developer
Yeah.
who couldn't understand why his technical explanations weren't resonating with the marketing team. He was talking about APIs and back-end architecture,
Wow.
while they were thinking about user experience and brand impact.
See, it makes sense when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
We're so focused on what we want to say that we forget to consider how the other person will hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the AAA approach comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that. What does AAA stand for?
It stands for acknowledge,
Okay,
adapt,
got it.
and articulate.
Okay.
First, you acknowledge the other department's perspective and priorities. Then, you adapt your speaking style and language to match their way of thinking. Finally, you articulate your message in a way that resonates with their goals.
So going back to Mike and the marketing team, he could acknowledge that they care about user experience,
Right.
adapt his language to focus on how the technical features improve that experience.
Yeah.
And then articulate his message in a way that connects to their goals of increasing user engagement and brand loyalty.
Exactly. It's about building bridges between different perspectives.
Yeah.
And creating a shared understanding. You don't have to become an expert in every department's jargon,
Right.
but you do need to understand their priorities and frame your message in a way that connects with their world.
That's such a helpful way to think about it. It's not about changing who you are, but about being a more effective communicator by being mindful of your audience. This reminds me of something else. The episode emphasized active listening, which honestly I think is one of the most underrated communication skills.
Absolutely. It's crucial.
Yeah.
And so often overlooked. The episode actually cited a study where 68% of cross-department project failures weren't due to lack of expertise, but to misunderstandings in verbal communication.
Wow, 68%. That's a huge number. It really highlights how much time, effort, and resources are wasted
Right.
because people aren't truly listening to each other.
Exactly. And to help us become better active listeners,
Yeah.
The episode provides a really useful technique called the 3 R's.
Okay.
Receive,
Okay.
reflect,
Got it.
and request.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break down those 3 R's.
Okay.
Receive. I'm guessing that's about actually paying attention, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Yes, and it also involves using verbal cues to show you're engaged.
Okay.
Like saying, I hear you, emphasizing the timeline concerns.
Got it. So you're actively listening and acknowledging their points. What about reflect?
Reflecting means putting what you heard into your own words to confirm understanding. But it's not just parroting back exactly what they said.
Okay.
It's about bridging their perspective with yours.
Mm-hmm.
You might say something like, so from what I understand, your department needs the technical specifications by Friday to meet the marketing deadline. Let me explain how this aligns with our development cycle.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It shows that you're not just listening passively, but actively trying to understand their perspective
Yeah.
and connect it to your own.
Exactly.
And finally, request.
yes.
What does that involve?
Requesting means asking clarifying questions to ensure you're on the same page and to demonstrate that you're trying to understand their priorities.
Okay.
And not just a generic,
Could you explain more?
but something specific like, well, when you say urgent,
Right.
does that mean you need this before the quarterly marketing push next week or for the team meeting on Thursday?
So you're demonstrating that you're paying attention to the details
Exactly.
and that you're genuinely trying to understand the nuances of their request.
You got it.
This is really making me think about my own listening habits.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into the trap of just nodding along and pretending you understand.
Yes,
But these 3 R's are a great framework for becoming a more active and engaged listener.
they are. And speaking of misunderstandings, the episode shares a story
Huh.
about a development team
Okay.
and a customer service team
Okay.
who kept misinterpreting each other.
Oh.
The developers would say, we'll look into it,
Okay.
meaning they'd investigate a potential bug, but customer service heard, we'll fix it right away.
Oh, no. I can see how that would lead to some major problems. Customers expecting a quick fix and then being disappointed when it doesn't happen.
Exactly. And that's why using clear, unambiguous language
Right.
and confirming understanding is so important,
Yeah.
especially when communicating across departments with different priorities and ways of working.
This reminds me of another technique. The episode mentions the echo and elaborate technique. Could you explain how that works?
Absolutely. After listening to a request, you echo back the key points in your own words to confirm understanding.
Okay.
But then you go a step further
Mhm.
and elaborate
Yeah.
by connecting those points to the specific implications for your department or your role. You might say something like, I hear that you need the report by Friday for the board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Let me elaborate on how this timing affects our data collection process and what specific elements we can deliver by then.
So you're not just repeating what they said, but
Yeah.
you're showing them how their request fits into your world and what you can realistically accomplish within the given time frame.
Exactly. It's about creating that shared understanding
Right.
by explicitly stating what you heard and then
Mhm.
connecting it to your own department's processes or your team's capabilities.
This is so helpful. And I love that the episode provides real-world examples of how these techniques have worked for others. Like the project manager who started using echo and elaborate
Mm-hmm.
and saw miscommunications drop by 70%. That's amazing.
It is. And not only did miscommunications decrease,
Oh.
but project timelines became more realistic
Right.
and cross-department relationships significantly improved.
Wow.
It's a great example of how even small changes in communication style can have a big impact
Yeah.
on team dynamics and overall productivity.
This deep dive is already packed with so much valuable advice,
Yeah.
and we're just getting started.
And there's so much more.
What's next on our agenda?
Well, now that we've laid the groundwork for effective communication,
Okay.
the episode takes us to the next level, building your cross-department communication toolkit. It's all about learning practical tools and phrases
Okay.
you can use right away
I like it.
to make your communication clearer, more persuasive,
Yes.
and more impactful.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes. This is the kind of practical advice I love. What are some of the gems we can find in this toolkit?
Well, one of the most compelling examples is Rachel,
Okay.
a product manager,
Okay.
who completely transformed her requests
Yeah.
by speaking to the other department's value and expertise
Okay.
instead of a generic.
Can the development team help with this?
She said, based on your team's outstanding work with the recent API integration, your expertise would be invaluable for optimizing our user authentication process. Could we schedule 15 minutes to discuss how we might collaborate on this?
Wow, what a difference. It's so much more engaging and respectful.
Yeah.
It's not just about being polite. It's about acknowledging their strengths and making them feel like valued partners.
Exactly. It shifts the dynamic from a transactional request to a collaborative opportunity,
Right.
which is much more likely to get a positive response.
And I imagine it helps to build those positive relationships over time, making future collaboration even smoother.
Absolutely. And to help us structure our requests effectively, the episode introduces a really useful framework called the IMPACT method.
Ooh, I love a good framework. Tell me everything. What does IMPACT stand for?
It stands for identify,
Okay,
motivate,
got it.
purpose,
Context.
context, and timeline.
Okay, let's break that down. Identify, you're acknowledging the other department's expertise and why they're the right people for the job. Motivate, you're explaining why their input is crucial
Right.
and how it benefits their team or their goals. Purpose, you're stating your objective clearly so there's no confusion about what you're asking for. Action, you're specifying exactly what you need from them, whether it's information, feedback, or specific action. Context, you're providing any relevant background information they might need to understand the request fully. And timeline, you're setting clear expectations for when you need their input or action.
That's a perfect summary. And the beauty of this framework is that it's flexible.
Yeah.
You can layer these elements strategically depending on the situation. For a high urgency request,
Right.
you might start with timeline and action,
Got it.
then back it up with purpose and motivation.
Okay.
For a complex project, you might lead with context and identity before moving to action and timeline.
It's like having different communication gears.
Yes.
You can shift
Yeah.
depending on the terrain you're navigating.
Exactly.
What I love about this episode is that it's not just about making requests.
Yeah.
It also provides guidance for how to respond when you're on the receiving end of a request.
Right.
Especially when it's a tricky one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And for those situations, the episode presents the EARN response framework.
Okay, another acronym. I'm ready. What does EARN stand for?
It stands for empathize,
Okay.
acknowledge,
Right.
respond,
Mm-hmm.
and navigate.
Okay.
So you empathize with the other person's position, acknowledge their constraints or challenges, respond with potential solutions or options,
Okay.
and navigate to the next steps to move the conversation forward.
I love how actionable and practical these frameworks are.
Yes.
It's like having a cheat sheet for navigating those sometimes awkward cross-department interactions.
It really is. And there's even more. The episode dives into specific techniques,
Okay.
like the bridge and build technique for urgent requests.
Tell me more about that one. It sounds intriguing.
It's about finding a way to connect your urgent need to the other department's current priorities and workload. The episode gives the example of a marketing director
Right.
who needed to get urgent support from the IT department. Instead of the typical, we need this ASP,
Yeah.
she said something like, I know your team is focused on the system upgrade, bridging to their current priority,
Right?
and I have identified a way we could align our campaign launch with your timeline.
Oh.
Building the connection.
Yeah.
Would you be open to exploring how we could coordinate these efforts to maximize impact for both departments?
That's so smart. She's not just demanding their time, she's acknowledging their current focus.
All right.
And proposing a win-win solution that benefits both departments.
Exactly. And by inviting them to explore solutions together,
Right.
she's creating a collaborative environment rather than a confrontational one.
This is brilliant. By the end of this section, I feel like I'll have a whole arsenal of communication tools and techniques at my disposal.
Yeah.
But let's not forget that we're living in a hybrid work world.
Right.
So tell me about the next section. Navigating virtual cross-department communication.
Yes.
Things can get even trickier when you're not face-to-face. Right?
Absolutely. Virtual communication presents unique challenges. But the episode offers some game-changing strategies that can dramatically improve your effectiveness.
Right.
In fact, one remote team featured in the episode increased their cross-department collaboration by a whopping 85% in just 3 weeks.
85%.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I'm definitely all ears. What are some of the unique challenges of virtual communication, and how can we overcome them?
Well, think about a typical virtual meeting.
Okay.
James from sales is checking his phone while talking about quarterly targets.
Yep.
Maria from operations has her camera off.
Yeah.
And Chen from IT is typing away on something else.
Uh-huh.
It's what the episode calls the virtual vacuum, where speaking impact gets lost.
Oh, I know that scene all too well. Everyone's physically present but mentally checked out.
yeah,
It's like talking to a wall sometimes.
exactly.
Oh,
And to combat this virtual vacuum,
okay.
the episode introduces Lisa, a project coordinator,
Okay.
who actually found ways to leverage virtual platforms to her advantage.
Good for her.
She developed the digital presence protocol, so a set of speaking techniques specifically designed for virtual communication.
Okay, tell me more about this digital presence protocol. It sounds like something I desperately need.
Well, one of the key elements is virtual voice anchoring.
Okay.
Since you can't use body language to emphasize points in a virtual setting,
Right.
you need to do it with your voice.
Okay.
For example, instead of just saying,
This project is important.
Lisa learned to say, I want to draw everyone's attention to 3 critical aspects of this project.
I can hear the difference. The second version immediately commands attention and signals that what you're about to say is important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about using your voice to create presence and impact,
Mm.
even when you're not physically in the room.
Yeah. And to help structure your virtual communication, the episode introduces the 33-1 rule.
Yes.
Ooh, I love a good rule. What's the 33-1 rule all about?
It's a simple but effective framework for delivering your message in a virtual setting. You have 30 seconds to grab attention and establish the context. 3 key points to support your message,
Got it.
and 1 clear call to action.
So for example, you might say, our 3 departments need to align on this by Friday,
Okay.
30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what each team needs to contribute.
Okay.
3 points.
Right.
And I'm requesting your verbal confirmation by the end of this call.
Exactly.
1 action.
Spot on. It's about being concise,
Yes.
clear,
Yeah.
and action-oriented.
I love how this framework helps to cut through the noise and get your message across effectively.
It does. And the episode also talks about using the chat function strategically
Okay.
for what it calls parallel processing.
That's interesting. I've always seen the chat function as more of a distraction than a helpful tool,
Yeah.
but I'm open to changing my mind.
Okay.
Tell me more about this parallel processing idea.
It's about leveraging the chat function
Okay.
to enhance the main conversation
Yeah.
without interrupting the flow.
Okay.
While someone is speaking, team members can use the chat
Yeah.
to drop relevant links, data points.
And quick confirmations. It's like having a second communication channel that runs alongside the main discussion.
I can see how that would be helpful, especially in a meeting where you're discussing a lot of information. Instead of interrupting the speaker every time you have a question or a comment, you can drop it in the chat and address it later.
Exactly. It keeps the conversation focused
Yeah.
while still allowing for real-time clarification and idea sharing.
Okay.
The episode even gives an example of a complex project discussion
Okay.
where the presenter was explaining the timeline verbally
Mm-hmm.
while team members used the chat to address immediate concerns and clarify points in real time.
Oh, nice.
It cut down on the usual back and forth by 60% and led to clearer outcomes.
That's amazing. It's like harnessing the power of technology to actually improve communication,
Right.
not just complicate it.
Exactly. And speaking of harnessing the power of technology,
Yeah.
the episode introduces another technique
Okay.
for effective virtual communication, the
Yeah.
virtual engagement trinity. Okay, another intriguing term I'm ready to learn. What are the 3 elements of this trinity?
It involves combining voice variation,
Okay,
question integration,
got it.
and visual anchoring.
So voice variation, using different tones and pacing to keep people engaged and prevent them from zoning out.
Right.
Question integration, strategically asking questions to check understanding and make sure everyone is following along.
Uh-huh.
And visual anchoring, referencing shared screens or documents
Exactly.
to keep everyone focused on the same information.
You got it. It's about using all the tools at your disposal
Okay.
to create a dynamic and engaging virtual experience, even when you can't be in the same room.
This is all such valuable advice. I'm already feeling more confident about navigating those sometimes awkward virtual meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
And one last thing I want to highlight from this section
Okay.
is the concept of digital empathy.
Digital empathy. What does that mean exactly?
It's about acknowledging the unique challenges of the virtual world and adjusting your communication style accordingly.
Okay.
For example, you might start a meeting by saying, I know we're all juggling multiple virtual meetings today.
Right.
So I've structured this discussion to be focused and actionable.
Okay.
Can I get a quick thumbs up if you're ready to dive in.
I love that.
Yeah.
It shows you understand the pressures people are facing.
Yeah.
And that you're trying to make the meeting efficient and valuable for everyone.
Right.
It's a small gesture
It is.
that can go a long way
Absolutely.
in creating a more positive and productive virtual environment.
It can. And these skills aren't just for pandemic-era remote work. They're becoming increasingly important in our hybrid working world,
Yeah.
where we're constantly switching between in-person and virtual interactions.
This episode is truly a goldmine of practical advice, and we're just getting warmed up.
Yes.
Next, we're taking a trip around the world
Yes.
with a section on cultural speaking patterns.
This is where things get really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding how different cultures approach communication in the workplace.
I'm ready for a global adventure through language. What are some key takeaways from this section?
Well, the episode kicks things off with a story about an American executive
Okay.
leading a global project.
Mm.
She was used to a very direct, efficient communication style.
Okay.
So when she told the Asian development team, we need this done by Friday, she was met with silence.
Oh, I can see how that would happen. It wasn't that they couldn't do it.
Right.
It was that her directness was probably perceived as abrupt or even disrespectful in their culture.
Exactly. And to help us navigate these cultural differences,
Okay.
the episode introduces a really helpful tool called the Cultural Communication Compass.
Okay, tell me more about this compass. How does it work?
It explains that different cultures
Yeah.
not only speak different languages,
Right.
but they also structure their thoughts and requests in fundamentally different ways. It's not just about translating words. It's about understanding the underlying cultural norms and expectations around communication.
That's fascinating. So what are some of the different approaches to communication we might encounter in different cultures?
The episode breaks it down into the global speaking triangle.
Okay.
One side of the triangle is the direct route,
Okay.
common in American and Northern European business contexts.
Right.
It's the classic get-to-the-point approach, where you state your requests clearly and directly.
So something like, could we schedule a meeting for Thursday to discuss the Q3 marketing plan?
Perfect example.
Yeah.
But that same approach
Right.
might be perceived as rude or dismissive in other cultures.
I can see that.
Another side of the triangle
Yeah.
is the contextual path,
Okay.
often used in Asian business cultures.
Got it.
It's about setting the stage
Okay.
and building context
Okay.
before making the request.
So instead of jumping right into the meeting request,
Right.
they might start by saying something like, as we're approaching the end of Q2 and considering our team's focus on market expansion.
Exactly. What might seem like beating around the bush
Yeah.
to Western colleagues is actually an essential way of building relationships and showing respect in those cultures.
And the third side of the triangle
Yes.
is the collaborative approach, common in Latin American and Southern European business cultures.
Right?
It emphasizes relationship building
Exactly.
and group harmony.
Right.
So something like, how is your team finding the current project phase? Perhaps we could explore some ideas together about the Q3 marketing strategy.
You got it. It's less about issuing directives
Right.
and more about inviting collaboration and creating a sense of shared ownership.
This is so eye-opening. It really makes you realize that effective communication is about so much more than just the words you use.
Absolutely.
It's about understanding the cultural context and
Yeah.
adapting your style to create a respectful and productive environment. But do we need to become experts in every cultural nuance? That seemed like a daunting task.
You don't have to be an expert,
Okay.
but you do need to be aware of these cultural differences and make an effort to adjust your communication style accordingly.
Okay.
The episode calls this cultural code switching.
Cultural code switching.
Oh.
I like that. It's about being mindful of how your communication style might be perceived by people from different cultures.
Exactly.
And making strategic adjustments to bridge those gaps.
Yes.
So it's not about changing your entire personality,
Right.
but about being flexible and adaptable in your approach.
Exactly. The episode shares a great example of Sarah,
Okay.
a project manager in London
Oh,
who was coordinating with teams in Singapore, New York, and Mumbai.
yeah.
To navigate these diverse cultural landscapes,
Okay.
she developed the Cultural Bridge Framework
Okay.
for her communication.
I'm curious to hear how she applied this framework. What did it look like in practice?
Well, for her Asian teams, she started with context and relationship building phrases like, I appreciate your team's thorough approach to the previous phase as we look toward our next milestone.
So she's acknowledging their contributions and setting a collaborative tone
Exactly.
before diving into the task at hand.
Right.
What about her American colleagues?
With her American colleagues, she led with clear action items such as, we need 3 key decisions in this meeting to move forward with the implementation.
That makes sense given their preference for directness and efficiency. And what about her Indian teams?
For her Indian teams, she incorporated both relationship elements and clear structures. She might say something like,
Okay.
I hope your team had a good Diwali celebration. Let's look at our 4 main priorities for this sprint.
So she's acknowledging their cultural tradition
Yes,
while also providing clear structure and direction.
exactly.
It's amazing how she's able to adapt her communication style
Yeah.
to create a sense of connection and understanding with each team while still being authentic to herself.
It is, and the results speak for themselves.
Okay.
Her project completion rates improved by 40%, and cross-department satisfaction scores shot up by 65%.
Wow.
That's a powerful testament to the impact of cultural intelligence in communication.
Absolutely. It really highlights the importance of being aware of these cultural differences, even when communicating within your own company.
Yeah.
Different departments can often have their own distinct cultures and communication styles.
Right.
So these principles apply there as well.
That's a great point. Even if you're not working with global teams,
Yeah.
you're likely interacting with people from diverse backgrounds and experiences.
Right.
And those differences can influence how they communicate and interpret information.
Yeah.
Being mindful of those nuances can go a long way in building stronger relationships and fostering a more inclusive and collaborative work environment.
This episode is truly a masterclass in cross-department communication. I'm already feeling more confident about navigating those complex conversations and building bridges across my organization. What's next on our agenda?
Well, now that we've explored the importance of cultural awareness and adaptability, the episode takes us to the heart of effective communication, the art of making clear requests.
Ooh. This is a good one.
Ah.
We've all been there now. A request gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
Deadlines are missed and frustration levels soar.
Yeah.
So how do we make our requests crystal clear
Right.
and avoid those communication breakdowns?
The episode uses a brilliant analogy, the game Telephone, to illustrate how messages can get distorted as they're passed from person to person. Except, in the workplace, it's not a game, and the stakes are much higher.
Right.
Misunderstandings can lead to costly mistakes, missed opportunities, and damaged relationships.
That's such a relatable analogy. We've all played telephone as kids
Right.
and experienced that frustration of the message getting completely garbled by the end.
Yes.
So how do we prevent that from happening in the workplace?
The episode introduces a powerful framework
Okay.
called the Crystal Method for making requests.
93%. That's amazing. I'm definitely sold. Tell me everything about this Crystal method. What does it stand for?
It stands for clarity,
Okay.
requirements,
Yeah.
yes, the decision point,
Okay.
stakeholders,
Got it.
timeline,
Okay.
action items,
Okay.
and logistics.
Okay. Let's unpack those elements. Clarity. You're starting with a clear, concise statement of your core request.
Okay.
Like, we need your team's expertise to develop a social media strategy for our new product launch.
Yeah.
Requirements, you're outlining the specific needs.
Okay.
Like, we need a strategy document that includes target audience analysis, key messaging themes, and a content calendar for the first 3 months. Yes, no. Decision point. You're creating a moment for a clear decision. Like, can your team commit to developing the strategy for us?
Yeah.
Stakeholders, you're identifying who needs to be involved.
Okay.
Like, we'll need input from your social media manager, content writer, and graphic designer. Timeline, you're specifying when you need it.
Okay.
Like, we need the final strategy document by date. Action items, you're listing the concrete next steps.
Right.
Like, let's schedule a kickoff meeting for next week to discuss the project scope and timeline. And logistics, you're covering the practical details like, we'll provide you with access to all relevant brand guidelines and marketing materials.
You've got it. It's about covering all the bases and making it as easy as possible for the other department to understand what you need and how they can help.
It's like creating a blueprint for success, leaving no room for ambiguity or confusion. I can see how that would dramatically increase the likelihood of getting your request fulfilled.
It does. And it's not just about following a template. It's about how you deliver the request. The episode introduces a technique called request layering,
Okay.
which is really helpful for framing your request
Yeah.
in a way that's both compelling and persuasive.
Request layering. I like that term. It sounds like a culinary technique for communication. How does it work?
Instead of overwhelming the other person with all the details up front,
Okay.
you strategically layer your request to build interest and create buy-in. It starts with the hook, something that grabs their attention and piques their curiosity.
Okay.
You might say something like, I've got a request that directly aligns with your department's current optimization project.
Okay. That's a great way to start.
Yeah.
You're showing them that you've done your homework
Right.
and that you understand their priorities.
Yeah.
What comes next?
Then you provide some context to set the stage for your request.
Okay.
Like, as you know, we're launching the new customer portal next month.
Mhm.
And then once you've piqued their interest and provided some context,
Yeah.
you present the core request.
Okay.
For example, what we need is a 2-hour technical review session with your senior developers.
So you're gradually building up to the main ask,
Exactly.
making it more appealing and easier to digest.
Exactly. And once you've presented the core request, you follow up with the value proposition,
Okay.
which explains how fulfilling your request will benefit them or their department. You might say something like, this review could prevent potential integration issues and save weeks of back and forth later.
So you're not just asking them to do something for you.
Right.
You're showing them how it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Right. And finally, you end with a specific ask to move the conversation forward. Something like, could we schedule this for next Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon?
It's like creating a compelling narrative
It is.
that makes your request irresistible. I can see how this approach would be much more effective than just sending a generic email or blurting out a request in a meeting.
It is. And to enhance your delivery, the episode also emphasizes the importance of vocal architecture, which is how you actually use your voice to convey nuance and meaning.
Vocal architecture, that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It's about using your voice as a tool to emphasize key points and create a sense of importance. For example, lowering your pitch and slowing your pace slightly when stating the core request can subtly signal importance without sounding demanding.
That's a great tip.
Mm-hmm.
It's about using your voice to create impact without being aggressive or overbearing.
Exactly. And one last technique I want to highlight for making clear requests
Okay.
is the echo confirm proceed method.
Okay, tell me more about that one. Sounds helpful.
After making your request,
Okay.
you ask the other person to echo back their understanding of what you've asked for.
Mm-hmm.
This ensures that you're both on the same page
Right.
and prevents misunderstandings down the line.
Exactly.
You might say something like, so that we're aligned, could you share your understanding of what we need?
That's a great way to check for clarity
Right.
and make sure everyone is on the same page before moving forward.
Exactly.
What's next in the echo confirm proceed method?
Next, you confirm any constraints or concerns they might have.
Okay.
You might say, are there any constraints from your department's side I should be aware of?
So you're acknowledging their reality and giving them space to voice any potential challenges.
Exactly. And finally, once you've addressed any concerns, you proceed with clear next steps to move the conversation forward.
Okay.
You might say, shall we proceed with scheduling the technical review?
It's a simple but powerful framework for ensuring that everyone is on the same page and that the request is handled efficiently and effectively.
It is. And the episode also mentions preemptive problem solving,
Right.
which is about anticipating and addressing potential concerns before they become roadblocks.
I love that idea. It's about being proactive and solution-oriented rather than waiting for problems to arise and then scrambling to fix them. So how might you use preemptive problem solving when making a request?
You might say something like,
Okay.
I know your team is in the middle of the system upgrade,
Yep.
so I've prepared 2 alternative timelines that could work around your current commitments.
So you're showing them that you've thought things through.
Right.
And that you're genuinely trying to make things work for both departments.
Exactly. This is all so helpful. I feel like I'm getting a masterclass in effective communication. But even with the clearest requests and the best intentions,
Yeah.
sometimes we run into resource constraints.
Right.
That's why I'm so excited about the next section, resource sharing language and negotiation skills. This is a topic that can be really tricky to navigate.
It can be, but the episode provides us with a really helpful framework called the Resource Dialogue Diamond, which has helped professionals
Yes.
secure cross-department resources with an 87% success rate.
That's incredible.
87%. That's impressive.
Hmm.
I'm all ears.
Hmm.
What are the facets of this diamond?
The first facet is value vocabulary.
Okay.
Instead of saying we need resources,
Right.
you learn to say, I see an opportunity for mutual benefit.
Ooh.
It's about framing your request in a way that highlights the value for both departments.
I love that shift in perspective.
Mm.
It moves away from a sense of competition for resources and towards a collaborative mindset where everyone benefits.
Exactly. And the second facet is capacity conversation, which involves mastering the three-tier speaking approach.
Okay, tell me more about this three-tier approach.
The first tier is about acknowledging the other department's current commitments and workload.
Okay.
You might start by saying something like, I understand your team is focused on the system upgrade.
So you're showing empathy and recognizing their existing priorities
Right.
before jumping into your request.
The second tier is about presenting flexible options that work for both sides.
Okay.
Instead of making demands,
Yeah.
you're offering solutions and inviting collaboration.
Mhm.
You might say, I've identified 3 potential ways to align this project with your existing workflow.
That's great. You're not just taking, you're
No.
giving. You're showing them that you're willing to be flexible and work within their constraints.
Exactly.
What's the third tier?
The third tier is about highlighting the mutual benefits of collaboration. You might say something like, this collaboration could help both our departments meet Q4 objectives. It's about focusing on the win-win and emphasizing those shared benefits. This approach is much more likely to get a positive response than just demanding resources.
It makes perfect sense. It's about building partnerships, not creating competition. So what's the third facet of this resource dialogue diamond?
The third facet is timeline trading. The episode emphasizes that timelines are negotiation spaces, not fixed points. We often get so attached to our own deadlines that we forget to consider the other department's constraints.
That's so true. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. So how do we approach timelines in a more collaborative way?
The episode suggests using flexible timeline language. Instead of saying, we need this by Friday, try something like, let's explore how we could phase this project to align with your team's sprint schedule. What timing would work best for your current commitments?
That's so much better. It opens up the conversation for collaboration and shows that you're respecting their time and their priorities.
Exactly. And the fourth and final facet of the resource dialogue diamond is resource reciprocity language. This is about speaking in terms of exchange and mutual support.
I love that concept. It's about creating a culture of reciprocity where departments help each other out, knowing that the favor will be returned down the line.
Exactly. You might say something like, while we need support from your team now, we can offer our analytical expertise for your upcoming data project. Or, let's discuss how we can create a balanced exchange of resources that benefits both departments in the long run.
It's about building those long-term relationships based on mutual trust and support, which is so important for creating a positive and productive work environment.
It is, and the episode provides a great example of this in action. A finance team was trying to secure IT support for a system upgrade, but they knew IT was already swamped with other projects. Instead of making a demanding request, they used what the episode calls a partnership pitch.
A partnership pitch. I like that. What did their pitch sound like?
They said something like, we know your team has specialized expertise in system optimization. We've structured our request to minimize the impact on your current projects, and we've also identified ways our financial analysis could support your upcoming infrastructure decisions. Could we explore how to make this a win-win for both departments?
That's brilliant. It acknowledges their expertise, minimizes disruption, offers something valuable in return, and invites collaboration. It's the perfect recipe for a successful resource negotiation.
It is. And one more key concept from this section that I want to highlight is constraint conversion, which is about turning limitations into opportunities.
Constraint conversion. That sounds intriguing. How does that work?
Instead of just saying, I know you're short-staffed, you could say something like, this could be an opportunity to streamline our processes and create more efficient workflows that benefit both teams in the long run.
Ah, I see. So you're reframing the challenge as an opportunity for growth and innovation.
Exactly. It's about looking for the silver lining and finding creative solutions that turn obstacles into advantages.
That's a powerful mindset shift. And it reminds me of another technique the episode mentions, future framework language.
Yes, that's a great one. It's about referencing future collaboration and mutual benefits when you're negotiating resources. For example, you might say, this project could serve as a model for how our departments can support each other going forward. Or, let's use this as an opportunity to establish a sustainable resource sharing framework that benefits both teams in the long term.
It's about building that long-term vision of collaboration and mutual support, which is so essential for creating a thriving workplace culture.
Absolutely. And now let's shift gears and explore a topic that's often overlooked but incredibly important, Emotional intelligence in cross-department communication.
Ooh, yes, this is a big one. We've all experienced those tense cross-department interactions where emotions run high and things can quickly escalate.
We have. And this section is all about how to navigate those situations with grace and skill using what the episode calls emotional intelligence speaking.
I'm ready for a masterclass in emotional intelligence. What are some key takeaways from this section?
Well, the episode starts with a story about a technology director who is constantly clashing with the marketing department. Every conversation seemed to escalate into conflict until she discovered the PULSE method. Perceive, understand, listen, speak, engage.
Paul's is. I like that. It's a great reminder that effective communication starts with empathy and understanding.
Exactly. And the first element of emotional intelligence in speaking is tension translation, which is about converting potentially confrontational language into collaborative dialogue.
So instead of saying something like, your department's delays are causing problems, you could say, I've noticed some timing challenges that are affecting both our teams. Could we explore solutions together?
Perfect example. It's about shifting the focus from blame to collaboration and finding common ground.
That's such a simple but powerful shift. It's about approaching the situation as partners, not adversaries.
Exactly. And the episode emphasizes that emotional intelligence isn't just about being nice. It's about using emotionally intelligent language to achieve practical outcomes. It introduces what it calls the 4 corners of emotional speaking.
Intriguing. Tell me more about these 4 corners.
The first corner is recognition language. This is about acknowledging the other person's perspective, their efforts, and their emotions. You might say something like, I can hear the pressure your team is under. I appreciate the complexity of what you're managing, or your team's expertise in this area is clearly valuable.
It's about validating their experience and making them feel heard and respected, which is so important for building trust and rapport.
It is. The second corner is bridge building phrases. These are phrases that help create a sense of collaboration and shared goals. You might say, let's see how we can align our objectives. We might find some common ground if we explore. Or perhaps we could combine our perspectives to create a more holistic solution.
It's about finding those points of connection and building bridges between different perspectives.
Exactly. The third corner is solution-focused dialogue. This is about shifting the focus from problems to solutions. You might say, what if we approach this challenge by, could we explore an alternative that addresses both our needs? Or, I'm curious about your thoughts on how we might.
It's about being proactive and focusing on finding a way forward together.
Right. And the fourth corner is future-focused framing. This is about creating a positive vision for the future and reinforcing the collaborative relationship. You might say, this could set a positive precedent for future collaboration between our departments. We have an opportunity to strengthen our working relationship through this project, or let's use this experience to create a template for handling similar situations more effectively in the future.
It's about building that long-term vision of partnership and mutual success.
Exactly. And the episode shares a great example of how these principles can be applied in real-life situations. A finance manager was dreading her upcoming budget discussions with other departments. She knew she needed to make some cuts, but she also wanted to maintain positive relationships.
That's a tough situation to be in. It's easy to feel like the bad guy when you have to deliver bad news.
It is. But instead of just saying, we need to cut your department's budget, she learned to use what the episode calls emotional bridging in her communication.
Emotional bridging. That sounds interesting. What did that look like in practice?
She started by acknowledging the other department's perspective and priorities. Then she shifted the focus to finding solutions together. Instead of saying, we need to cut your budget, she said, let's explore how we can achieve our financial goals while protecting your department's key initiatives.
What a difference. It's so much more collaborative and solution-oriented.
It is, and she achieved amazing results. Not only did she get the budget adjustments she needed, but other departments started coming to her for advice on resource optimization. She became known as a trusted advisor, not a budget enforcer.
That's a testament to the power of emotional intelligence. It's not just about being nice. It's about using your communication skills to create a more positive and productive environment for everyone.
Exactly. And to help us navigate emotionally charged conversations, the episode introduces another helpful framework called the Clear Speaking Framework.
Okay, I'm ready to add another tool to my communication toolkit. What does CLEAR stand for?
It stands for Connect, Level, Explore, Acknowledge, and Resolve.
So you start by connecting with the other person on a human level. Then you level with them by finding common ground and building rapport. Next, you explore their concerns and perspectives fully. Then you acknowledge their emotions and validate their experience. And finally, you work together to resolve the situation in a way that benefits both parties.
You got it. It's a simple but powerful framework for navigating those challenging conversations where emotions are running high.
And it reminds me of another technique the episode mentions, emotional forecasting, which is about anticipating and addressing emotional responses before they surface.
That's a great one. It's about showing empathy and proactively addressing potential concerns before they escalate into conflict. For example, you might say something like, I realize this request might feel overwhelming given your current workload. You might be concerned about how this affects your team's priorities, or I understand this could create some uncertainty.
It's about acknowledging the potential impact of your request and validating their feelings.
Exactly. And one more technique from this section that I want to highlight is emotional echoing, which is about carefully mirroring the emotional tone of the other person while gradually shifting towards a more constructive frequency.
That's an interesting one. What are some examples of how that might work?
If they're frustrated, you might say, I hear the frustration in your voice. Managing multiple priorities can be incredibly challenging. If they're anxious, you could say, I understand. These tight deadlines can create a lot of pressure. And if they're resistant, you might say, it's natural to have concerns about new approaches. Let's explore your thoughts on this.
It's about meeting them where they are emotionally and creating a sense of understanding and validation before moving the conversation forward.
Exactly. By mastering these emotional intelligence speaking techniques, you can transform conflicts into collaboration and build stronger cross-department relationships.
This is all such valuable advice. I'm feeling much more equipped to handle those tricky emotional situations now. But let's move on to the next section, which is all about the long game. Building long-term cross-department relationships.
This is where it all comes together. It's about moving beyond those transactional interactions and building lasting professional connections that make work more enjoyable and productive.
I'm all for that. How do we start building those long-term relationships that make a real difference?
Well, the episode tells the story of Jennifer, a senior analyst who was initially known as the email person. She was great at her job, but she wasn't really seen as a leader or a collaborator. But that all changed when she mastered what the episode calls the bridge protocol. Build, reinforce, invest, develop, grow, enhance.
Bridge. I like that. It sounds like a comprehensive approach to relationship building.
It is. And the first element of the bridge protocol is connection catalysts, which are specific speaking patterns that create instant rapport and build a foundation for a strong relationship.
So instead of saying, I need your department's input on this, you might say, your team's expertise has been invaluable in similar situations in the past. I'd like to get your insights on how we can approach this challenge.
Exactly. It's about showing genuine appreciation and recognizing their value. And the episode emphasizes that successful relationship building isn't just about one-off interactions. It's about creating what it calls conversation continuity, which involves 3 key speaking strategies.
Okay, I'm all about building those strong connections. So tell me about those 3 strategies for creating conversation continuity.
The first strategy is value visibility. This is where you actively acknowledge and appreciate the contributions of other departments, both big and small.
So you might say something like, I noticed how your suggestion in last week's meeting really improved our process, or the way your team handled that recent challenge was a great example of cross-department collaboration at its best.
Exactly. It's about making people feel seen and appreciated for their efforts. The second strategy is future framework. This is about weaving in references to future collaboration and opportunities when you're interacting with other departments.
So you might say, this collaboration could open up some really interesting opportunities for both our departments down the line, or I see potential for our teams to create some truly innovative solutions together in the future.
Right. It's about painting a picture of a shared future where both departments benefit from the relationship. And the third strategy is relationship reinforcement. This is where you explicitly acknowledge and appreciate the relationship itself.
So you might say something like, I really appreciate how our departments have been able to support each other through thick and thin, or the synergy between our teams has consistently led to outstanding results.
Exactly. It's about reinforcing the positive aspects of the relationship and building a foundation of trust and mutual respect.
These strategies are so simple, yet so powerful. It's all about being intentional with your language and using it to nurture those relationships that make work more enjoyable and productive for everyone.
Absolutely. And the episode introduces a really cool technique called the relationship radar. It's about actively scanning for opportunities to strengthen departmental bonds through strategic speaking.
That's such a cool concept. It's like having a sixth sense for relationship building. How does it work in practice?
It involves simple actions like expressing appreciation for weekend work, sharing relevant insights from your department, offering support before it's requested, acknowledging team achievements, and planting seeds for future collaboration.
It's about being proactive and looking for those small but meaningful ways to connect with people from other departments and show them that you care.
Exactly. And the episode provides a more structured framework called the Alliance Architecture, a series of speaking patterns for building sustainable cross-department relationships.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes. What are the layers of this alliance architecture?
The first layer is the foundation layer, where you establish common ground. You might say something like, both our departments are ultimately focused on enhancing customer experience, or we share similar challenges when it comes to resource optimization.
It's about finding that shared purpose and connecting on a fundamental level.
Exactly. Then comes the support layer, where you demonstrate understanding of their perspective and priorities. You might say, I understand the pressures your team faces with those quarterly deadlines, or your department's priorities are clearly focused on driving innovation, which is so important for our company's success.
It's about showing empathy and acknowledging their unique challenges and contributions.
Right. And then you have the connection layer, where you create mutual value by highlighting the benefits of collaboration. You might say, by combining our perspectives, we could develop more comprehensive and innovative solutions, or our department's complementary skills could really take this project to the next level.
It's about showcasing the power of synergy and how much more we can achieve when we work together.
Exactly. And finally, you have the growth layer, where you foster long-term collaboration by painting a vision of a shared future. You might say, this could be the beginning of a truly exciting collaborative partnership, or let's explore how we can support each other's long-term objectives and create a win-win for both departments.
It's about building that shared vision of success and creating a roadmap for a thriving long-term relationship.
Exactly. And one final tip from this section is to use momentum messaging, which are speaking patterns that maintain relationship momentum even during those quiet periods when you don't have a specific project to collaborate on.
That's a great point. It's easy to let those relationships fizzle out when you're not actively working together on something. So how do we keep that momentum going?
You can send a quick message saying, just wanted to share some positive feedback we received about our joint initiative from last quarter. Your team's contributions were instrumental in our success. Or, I came across this article that I thought you might find interesting. It relates to our recent discussion about topic.
It's about staying top of mind and nurturing those relationships even when you don't have a specific request.
Exactly. It's about showing them that you value the relationship and that you're thinking of them.
This is all such valuable advice. I'm already thinking about how I can apply these techniques to build stronger, more sustainable relationships across my organization. But let's be realistic. Sometimes things don't go as planned, and that's why I'm so glad the next section of the episode focuses on crisis communication across departments.
This is where communication skills really get put to the test. The episode paints a vivid picture. It's 4:45 p.m. on a Friday, your system just crashed, and you need urgent support from 3 different departments. Your heart's racing, deadlines are looming, and you need to get people to drop everything and help.
Oh, I can feel the stress just thinking about it. We've all been there. When the pressure's on, it's easy to let panic take over and for communication to break down.
Exactly. But that's where mastering crisis communication becomes your superpower. The episode shares the inspiring story of an IT manager facing a potential data breach. She needed immediate cooperation from legal, PR, and operations, but instead of panicking, she used the rapid response protocol and managed to coordinate all 3 departments within 15 minutes.
Wow, that's incredible. 15 minutes in a crisis situation. That's amazing. What does RAPID stand for and how does it work?
RAPID stands for Remain Calm, Assess the Situation, Prioritize Actions, Inform Clearly, and Delegate Effectively. It's a framework for taking control of the situation, calming those nerves, and guiding your team towards a solution.
It's about taking a deep breath and focusing on clear, actionable communication, even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart.
Exactly. And to help us communicate effectively in those high-pressure moments, the episode introduces the concept of emergency eloquence.
Emergency eloquence. I love that term. What does it involve?
It involves 3 critical speaking patterns: clarity without panic, precision with purpose, and urgency without aggression.
Okay, let's break those down. Clarity without panic. What does that sound like?
Instead of saying, oh my God, everything's a disaster, you say something like, we have a critical situation that requires immediate attention from everyone. Here's what we know so far. You're acknowledging the situation clearly and calmly without letting fear take over.
That makes sense. It's about conveying the seriousness of the situation without creating unnecessary panic. What about precision with purpose?
Instead of just yelling, help, we need all hands on deck, you clearly articulate the specific actions needed from each department. You might say something like, in the next 30 minutes, we need the following 3 actions from each department.
So you're providing clear direction and a sense of purpose, even in the midst of chaos.
Exactly. And what about urgency without aggression? Instead of saying, this needs to be fixed now, you convey a sense of urgency while maintaining a respectful and collaborative tone. You might say, this is a time-sensitive situation, and I truly appreciate your immediate assistance.
It's about emphasizing the urgency without attacking or blaming anyone.
Exactly. It's about rallying the troops and working together as a team to resolve the crisis.
This is all such valuable advice. It's so easy to let emotions take over in a crisis, but these techniques help you stay calm, focused, and effective.
They do. And to help us bring order to the chaos, the episode introduces a framework called Controlled Chaos Communication.
Controlled chaos communication. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
It's a 4-part framework that helps you structure your communication in a way that calms nerves, provides clarity, and guides everyone towards a solution.
Okay, I'm ready to break down this framework. What's the first component?
The first component is the initial impact statement. Instead of saying, everything's falling apart, you say something like, we have a situation that requires immediate cross-department coordination. Here's what we know so far, and here's what we need to figure out.
So you're acknowledging the situation, providing a brief overview, and setting the stage for collaborative problem solving.
Exactly. The second component is action activation. Instead of yelling, drop everything and help, you calmly and clearly state the specific actions needed from each department. For example, I need the following 3 actions from each department in the next hour.
It's about giving people clear directions and a sense of purpose in the midst of the chaos.
Exactly. The third component is timeline transparency. Instead of vaguely saying, this needs to be fixed as soon as possible, you provide a clear, specific timeline for the response effort. You might say, here's our critical timeline. We need an initial assessment within 15 minutes, a coordinated action plan by 30 minutes, and implementation underway within the hour.
That's a great way to create a sense of urgency without creating unnecessary panic.
Right. It's about providing structure and clarity in a way that helps everyone focus and prioritize.
And what's the fourth and final component of the controlled chaos communication framework?
The fourth component is solution structure. Instead of just saying, just fix it, you provide a clear framework for how you're going to approach the problem and who's responsible for what. You might say, let's approach this systematically. First, IT will, then operations can, and finally, legal needs to.
It's about breaking down the problem into manageable steps and creating a clear path forward, even when the situation feels overwhelming.
Exactly. And to illustrate how this framework works in a real-life crisis, the episode shares an example of a project manager who used the Crisis Clarity Framework to coordinate 5 departments during a major system outage.
Remind me, what are the 3 phases of the Crisis Clarity Framework?
The first phase is alert without alarm. This is where you communicate the urgency of the situation without resorting to fear-mongering. The project manager in the example said things like, we have a significant situation that requires our collective expertise. This is a high priority issue that requires immediate cross-department coordination, and I'm reaching out to you because your department's unique skills are crucial for resolving the situation effectively.
It's about conveying the seriousness of the situation while also inspiring confidence and a sense of shared purpose.
Exactly. The second phase is direct without demanding. This is where you clearly state what you need from each department without being aggressive or dictatorial. The project manager in the example said things like, could you please pause your current tasks and join an emergency response meeting? Quote, we need your department's expertise for the next 30 minutes to prevent this situation from escalating, and your immediate input would be invaluable in developing a swift and effective solution.
It's about being assertive and direct while also being respectful and collaborative.
Right. And the third phase is guide without commanding. This is where you provide clear direction and structure without being bossy or controlling. The project manager in the example said things like, "Here's how I propose we coordinate our response effort. Based on our experience with similar situations in the past, this approach has proven to be highly effective, and let's align our efforts in the following way to ensure a swift and coordinated response."
It's about being a leader and providing guidance without micromanaging or dictating every step.
Exactly. It's about empowering each department to contribute their expertise and work together towards a shared goal.
This crisis clarity framework is brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm adding it to my communication toolkit immediately. And speaking of working together, the episode also highlights the importance of using crisis cohesion language, which are specific phrases that unite departments during emergencies and create a sense of shared purpose and solidarity.
That's a great point. In a crisis, it's easy for departments to become siloed and focused on their own priorities. But using crisis cohesion language can help break down those barriers and foster a spirit of teamwork.
So what are some examples of crisis cohesion language?
You might say something like, "We're all in this together, and each department has a crucial role to play in resolving this situation successfully." Or, "By combining our expertise and working together as one team, we can overcome this challenge and emerge stronger than ever."
It's about creating a sense of shared responsibility and inspiring everyone to contribute their best efforts.
Exactly. And one final tip from this section is to use the recovery bridge technique after the crisis has passed.
Recovery bridge. That sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It involves using specific speaking patterns that acknowledge people's contributions, express gratitude, and reinforce the positive aspects of the collaboration.
So you might say something like, "I truly appreciate your department's quick response and willingness to go above and beyond to help resolve this situation," or "Your team's expertise was absolutely instrumental in getting us back on track. Thank you for your incredible support."
Exactly. It's about acknowledging people's efforts and rebuilding those relationships after a stressful event.
This entire section on crisis communication has been so valuable. I feel much more prepared to handle a crisis situation effectively should one arise. But, as we all know, practice makes perfect. So let's move on to the next section: practice scenarios and role-play situations.
This is where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to understand these concepts in theory, but it's another thing to actually apply them in real-life situations.
I couldn't agree more. Practice is essential for mastery. So how do we make the most of practice scenarios?
The episode tells the inspiring story of Sarah, a project manager who used to freeze up when requesting resources from other departments. She knew what to say in theory, but when she was actually in the situation, her mind would go blank.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel intimidated when you're asking for something, especially when you're dealing with other departments who have their own priorities.
It is, but Sarah was determined to improve, so she started using what the episode calls the SCENE method: situation, context, expression, negotiation, and evaluation.
Scene. I like that. Sounds like a structured approach to practicing those tricky conversations.
It is. And after practicing consistently with the SCENE method, Sarah transformed into her department's most effective communicator. She became known for her ability to navigate complex conversations, secure resources, and build strong cross-department relationships.
That's inspiring. It shows that anyone can improve their communication skills with the right approach and dedicated practice.
Exactly. And to make your practice sessions as effective as possible, the episode emphasizes the importance of using real play scenarios.
Real play. That makes perfect sense. The more realistic the practice scenario, the more prepared you'll be to handle the real thing.
Exactly. So let's dive into a couple of real play scenarios that the episode provides.
Okay, I'm game. Hit me with scenario 1.
Scenario 1 is the urgent IT request.
Ooh, I can feel the pressure already. Let's set the scene.
It's the day before your big marketing campaign launch, and you've just discovered a critical technical issue on your website. You need immediate support from the IT department, but they're already swamped with a planned system update. The clock is ticking.
Okay, this is a classic high-pressure situation. What are some key speaking patterns I can practice to navigate this effectively?
You might start by acknowledging their current workload and the urgency of the situation. You could say something like, "I understand you're in the midst of a crucial system update, and I hate to interrupt, but I need to bring something time-sensitive to your attention that's affecting our marketing campaign launch tomorrow."
So you're being respectful of their time, but also conveying the urgency of the situation.
Exactly. And then you could suggest a collaborative approach to finding a solution. You could say something like, "Here's how I think we might be able to align this urgent fix with your current priorities." Or, "Could we explore a solution that addresses both our immediate needs and minimizes disruption to your workflow.
It's about proposing a win-win solution that benefits both departments.
Exactly. And the episode also introduces the concept of response rhythm, which means anticipating and preparing for different types of responses.
Response rhythm, that's a great idea. It's like having a mental script for different scenarios so you're not caught off guard.
Exactly. For example, if they say, "We're too busy right now, we can't possibly squeeze in another task," you could respond with, "I completely understand that your team is swamped. Let me quickly explain why addressing this issue now could actually save time and resources for both our departments in the long run."
It's about reframing the request in a way that highlights the benefits for them and shows them why it's worth prioritizing.
Right. And if they say, "This isn't a priority for us right now, we have other more urgent tasks to focus on," you could respond with, "I understand. Let me take a moment to explain how addressing this issue aligns with your department's key objectives and contributes to our company's overall success."
It's about connecting your request to their goals and showing them how helping you actually helps them.
Exactly. And if they say, "We simply don't have the resources to help you right now, we're stretched too thin," you could respond with, "I appreciate that. I've actually prepared a few options for how we might be able to work within your current constraints." Perhaps.
It's about being proactive and solution-oriented, even when faced with obstacles.
Exactly. It's about showing them that you're not just demanding their help, but that you're a partner who's committed to finding solutions that work for everyone.
I love this response rhythm technique. It's so helpful to practice different scenarios and anticipate potential pushback so you can respond effectively in the moment.
It is. And now, let's move on to scenario 2, the cross-department project launch.
Okay, bring it on. I'm ready for a new challenge. What's the situation?
Imagine you're launching a new project that involves multiple departments, each with its own priorities and perspectives. Finance wants to control costs, IT needs to ensure technical feasibility, operations is focused on smooth implementation, and marketing is all about maximizing customer impact.
Oh, I've definitely been in this situation before. It can feel like herding cats trying to get everyone on the same page and moving in the same direction.
It can, and that's where we practice what the episode calls stakeholder symphony, which is about coordinating these different perspectives and creating a harmonious outcome where everyone feels heard and valued.
Stakeholder symphony. I love that metaphor. It's like conducting an orchestra where each instrument plays its part to create a beautiful, cohesive symphony.
Exactly. And to achieve this stakeholder symphony, it's important to acknowledge and appreciate each department's unique contribution to the project. The episode provides a great example of how to weave these different perspectives together in a way that creates buy-in and a shared sense of purpose. As we embark on this exciting new project, it's important to recognize that each department brings invaluable expertise to the table. Finance's keen eye for ROI, IT's technical prowess, operations' practical know-how, and marketing's deep understanding of our customers will all play vital roles in our collective success.
That's beautifully said. It's about celebrating those differences and showing everyone how their unique strengths contribute to the bigger picture.
Exactly. And another powerful technique for navigating these multi-department projects is perspective shifting, which involves practicing speaking from different departmental viewpoints.
Perspective shifting. That sounds like a great way to build empathy and understanding.
It is. When you're practicing, try speaking to each department from their perspective. When speaking to IT, you might focus on the technical architecture requirements, data security protocols, and system integration challenges. When speaking to finance, you might highlight how this project aligns with their cost-saving initiatives and drives revenue growth. And when speaking to operations, you might explore how this project integrates with their existing workflows and optimizes efficiency.
It's about stepping into their shoes and seeing the project from their point of view. This helps you tailor your message to resonate with their specific priorities and language.
Exactly. And when you're practicing these real-play scenarios, the episode recommends using what it calls challenge escalation, which means starting with simple scenarios and gradually increasing the complexity.
Challenge escalation. That makes perfect sense. It's like a communication boot camp, starting with the basics and working your way up to those high-pressure, multi-department scenarios.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might start with a basic resource request like, could your team provide input on our marketing strategy for the new product launch? Then you could move on to a time-sensitive coordination scenario like, we need to align our 3 departments on a revised launch date within the next 48 hours. How can we make this happen? Then you could tackle a conflict resolution scenario like, marketing wants a flashy launch event, but finance is pushing for a more cost-effective approach. Let's brainstorm ways to balance those competing priorities and find a solution that works for everyone. And finally, you could practice a crisis management scenario like our website just crashed and it's affecting customer orders. Here's how we'll coordinate our emergency response.
It's about progressively challenging yourself and building your confidence as you master each level.
Exactly. And to make your practice as effective as possible, the episode emphasizes the importance of reality resonance, which means making your scenarios as close to real-life situations as possible.
Reality resonance.
Yeah.
It is. The more your practice scenarios mirror the real.